4 months ago, Apple launched the MacBook Neo at $600, and it pretty much disrupted the laptop market, especially on the lower end. This was the cheapest Mac in a laptop form factor, and it sold like hotcakes. Apple sold over 1 million units within a span of a couple of weeks. The demand was just so high to a point where most of them were out of stock. A lot of them were in back order. I remember I had trouble finding one in stock here locally in the GTA. It was a hot commodity at the time. But currently the stock situation is pretty good, but there is a good reason for that too, because recently Apple raised the price, not just for the Neo, but across their entire lineup. So if you bought a MacBook Neo before the price hike, congrats, you saved some money. But if you're still in the market for a Mac without breaking the bank, $700 is still, I think in my opinion, a serious value proposition. Because on the Windows side, if you think about it, they did respond pretty quickly. I mean, we have Dell who brought back the XPS 13 at $700, same price as the Neo, and it didn't cheap out on materials. I mean, from our early hands-on coverage at Computex, I think that thing is going to give the Neo a run for its money because it just feels awesome. Acer also jumped in with the Swift Air 14. It's also $700, aluminum build, 120Hz display. It also comes with a backlit keyboard. These are direct competitors, by the way, and they both feature Intel CPUs. But if you want ARM efficiency on Windows, there's Qualcomm Snapdragon X2. So I thought it would be interesting to see how Apple's cheapest Mac would compare against what Qualcomm has been cooking. And the laptop that I chose for this comparison is this, the Lenovo IdeaPad Slim 5X. It's Qualcomm's entry-level laptop, and like every other Windows laptop, its price has been on a complete roller coaster ride lately. I've seen it going for $1,200 all the way up to $1,500 in the US, but right now as I'm recording this, it's back down to $970. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's $1,500 or even more when you watch this. But just to be clear, when Lenovo first announced this laptop, its official price was $850. So how does it stack up? I mean, is 8 GB enough on a Mac? Because this thing comes with 16 GB. And also, are you compromising on any other features that are essential for day-to-day use? Because on paper, this shouldn't even be a fair fight. But we're really here to find out what $700 actually buys you in the real world. Now, before we get into the results, I just want to quickly go over what's inside these laptops. So the MacBook Neo runs on Apple's A18 Pro chip. So it's the same chip that's inside the iPhone 16 Pro. It comes with a 6-core CPU, a 5-core GPU, which is one less than what you get on the iPhone. It also comes with 8 GB of unified memory and a 256 GB SSD. This is the base model. The IdeaPad Slim 5X, on the other hand, comes with Qualcomm's Snapdragon X2 Plus. More specifically, it's their entry-level chip, the X2P42100. Good luck remembering that. It's a 6-core Orion Gen 3 chip paired with 60 gigs of LPDDR5X memory, running at 9,523 megatransfers per second. So on paper, the Slim 5X looks like the clear winner, right? Double the RAM, faster memory, a chip designed specifically for laptops versus one that was borrowed from a phone. But specs on paper and real-world performance are two very different things. Which is why I wanted to do a live performance comparison between the Neo and the Slim 5X. So I'm going to start with a cold boot test and see which one actually turns on quicker. Power button on the Slim 5X is on the side, whereas on the Neo, it's integrated on the lock button that's over here. All right, so that was actually a pretty close call on both these laptops, but I think I'm going to give it to the Slim 5X. And I think the reason for that is pretty simple. This thing has a really fast Gen 4 SSD, and the drive speeds are insanely fast compared to the MacBook Neo. I mean, the MacBook Neo, I think you're averaging between 1.5 to 1.6 gigabytes per second on read. The Slim 5X is on a whole new level, but let's see how that translates into real-world applications. So for starters, I'm going to do a quick Chrome web browsing test to see which one opens. And like I said, it's pretty snappy on the Slim 5X. The MacBook Neo takes maybe 2, 3, 4 more seconds to open that up, but I've actually grouped some tabs before. So let's see which one actually takes the least amount of time. So I think on the Mac, it's Command-Shift-T, and then on Windows, I think it's, there we go. So we have roughly 20 tabs open on both these laptops. I've got my Google Sheets, my inventory, basically seeing which laptops has arrived here at the studio, which one has left, Google Maps, and then I've also got YouTube. As you can see, it takes a couple of seconds to load here, but if I were to go on the Neo, it's pretty instantaneous. Everything loads up very quickly. It's already preloaded and it's so fast. This tab over here that showcases the Volvo XC90. Yeah, the video rendering is beautifully done on both these laptops. I'm not seeing any stutters or anything like that. And interestingly, the Slim is also unplugged, which is something that I want to mention is the Neo. Both of these laptops are running on battery mode right now. So we have our O magazine over here, which is a really beautiful site that celebrates Porsches, which is great. I also have Expedia. Guys, I think the experience with Chrome is very similar on both the Slim 5X and the MacBook Neo, but here's the interesting part. I want to see how much memory the Slim 5X is consuming. So out of these 16 gigabytes built in, the Slim 5X is consuming 13.2 gigs. That's 85%. Whereas on the MacBook Neo, we're at 82%. But the difference is the Neo only has 8 gigabytes of memory, while the Slim 5X has 16 gigabytes, which is twice. And yet the experience is very similar. So it just goes to show that the optimizations with macOS for lighter usage is really, really good. Okay, for this next test, I'm gonna open a bunch of documents. So it's a mix of PDF files, we've got Excel files, PowerPoint files, Word documents, and a couple of video files. So on the Mac, it's pretty simple. You just select all of them and then hit open, and everything just kind of opens so instantaneously. I would say it maybe takes about 5 to 10 seconds to successfully open all of it. On the Windows side, I just have to go back and open everything, but even then, everything works pretty fast. Like nothing really feels sluggish or slow. See, I'm gonna have to go back again. I just wish there was a way for me to open all these documents at once on Windows, but yeah, I just couldn't find a solution for that. Unless if I have to write a custom script, but that's just gonna take too long. All right, so all the documents are opened up, and as you can see in this expose form, it looks beautiful. And you know, if I go to a Word document, it just, like I said, it just goes in there pretty quickly. I have no issues navigating through these documents, so that's great. But I did have an issue with the video file on the Slim laptop. Supposedly, I don't think the HEVC codec that the video itself is not really supported, so I need to download an extension, which is going to cost me $1.29, as you can tell, which is very interesting. Whereas on the Mac, it's all native, so it just plays back no problem. I have no issues. I'm sure, obviously, if you download like VLC or some other third-party media player, then the video will work okay. But out of the box, it kind of sucks that you have to like go out of your way and download all these codecs to play back a video. If you look at memory consumption at this point, the Slim is super close, guys. It's consuming 88% of that 16 gigabytes of memory, whereas the MacBook Neo, it's around 82%. So it's also telling me that there's a bit of a warning here because I'm almost close to its threshold. But honestly, it feels very snappy. The video is actually playing back in real time on the Neo. Let's see how that's going on the Slim. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. I'm really not noticing any difference there. So scrolling through the comments here, and everything is loading up very quickly. I'm really surprised at the Neo so far because, you know, I was going into this thinking that 8 gigabytes wouldn't be enough, but it looks like for these lighter tasks that are more web-based or just something basic as opening Word document, PowerPoints, Excel files, like it's perfectly fine. Now, Canva is a really popular application. It's something that you use to design posters and create, you know, short form content. But yeah, this is just a quick demo to see how it handles that application. Now, this is a web-based UI, so everything works pretty smooth, especially on the Mac. Now, one thing I should mention is, you know, as much as the performance is pretty similar on both these laptops, it's also the user input, right? On the Mac, the trackpad is just so smooth. Like I can easily zoom in, not have any issues with cursor skipping. It's very responsive to the teeth. Whereas on the Slim 5X, you really have to be very patient. Like sometimes, especially when it comes to like opening tabs and things like that, or going to a tab, it requires a little bit of finesse. Like you're not getting that one-to-one response time. So it certainly is a difference, which is kind of crazy to think, despite the massive price difference between these two laptops. Now, I want to test out CapCut on both these laptops because it is a very popular application. For those who are sort of trying to get into content creation, this is just a quick launch test to see which one opens the fastest. But yeah, the Neo looks like it's starting, but the Slim 5X opens the app faster. And if I were to open up the project that I've already worked on, very surprising. The Neo actually surpasses the Slim 5X. It loads it up right away. It's instantaneous. And if I'm playing back the footage, yeah, it seems like it's super smooth, very, very easy to work with. Playback is actually very smooth on both these laptops. So if you're in a situation where you're taking a lot of photos or videos and you want to just put it all together, let's say you're working on a slideshow for your grandparents or your parents, you can have a really great experience on the MacBook Neo. And remember, this is the base configuration, so it's not going to cost you a lot of money. All right, if you look at memory consumption at this point, the Slim 5X is consuming roughly 92%. So we're very close, guys. Whereas the MacBook Neo is sitting at 84%. So it looks like Apple's doing a really good job optimizing the limited amount of RAM that they have. And as you can see, the video is playing back no problem. I'm not having any issues right there. I'm gonna go to a web tab over here. Yep, it's still working just fine. And if I were to do the same thing on the Slim 5X, video is playing back no problem. If I go to the Volvo, yeah, like it's really pushing its limits right over here. Now, CapCut is a very basic video editing application, but if you want to push it a little bit further with apps like Adobe Premiere and Davinci Resolve, I did happen to test those on both these laptops, and to my surprise, the Neo was faster. Yeah, it's insane. In Adobe Premiere, it was about 7% faster. Not that significant, but in Resolve Studio, this thing was close to 42% faster to export our standard 30-minute project. That, my friends, proves Apple's incredible optimization, even for the A18 Pro chip, for a heavy NLE like Davinci Resolve Studio. And to add to that, the A18 Pro only consumes about 4 watts versus 26 watts on the Snapdragon X2 Plus chip. So that's 85% less power consumed on the Neo. So I'm really hoping that I'm painting a picture in terms of power efficiency to performance with these tests. All right, next up we have Adobe LightRoom. Now, obviously, I don't think people who are buying these laptops would consider using Adobe LightRoom. This is a popular application that I use to edit my photos. So I'm just gonna show you exactly which one is the fastest when it comes to importing files, but also exporting files. Well, the Neo clearly wins here because it just opened the app way more faster than the Slim 5X. As you can see, this thing is still going. But in the meantime, I'm gonna import all the photos that I have over here into Lightroom. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Oh, wow, this thing is actually, like, you can tell the 16 gigabytes of memory is being utilized at 100%. Like, there's barely enough memory for it to load. We're going to keep pushing this thing. So let's open up all the photos. Even the thumbnails actually take quite some time to load here, whereas on the Mac, it was pretty instantaneous. I'm going to import it, import the same thing over here. Let's see which one actually completes it. Okay, so the Neo's already there. Like, the Neo finished importing a lot quicker than I thought it would, which is interesting because this has the slowest SSD compared to the Slim 5X. So maybe the faster drive doesn't really contribute to faster performance. I mean, this is real world test, guys. I'm giving you guys the real deal here. So let's go ahead and export these photos. We're gonna select maximum quality. Where's maximum quality? It was right here. This trackpad is really, really finicky to get with. Like, it just scrolls all the way to the bottom, even with the slightest scrolling speed. Like, as you can see, this trackpad is, like, it just like goes all the way to the top and bottom. Whereas in the Mac, you can tell how responsive it is. It's that smoothness, the refinement that I just still can't happen to find on a Windows laptop within this price point. So I'm still having trouble finding that menu here. Okay, there we go. Oh, there it is. Okay, 100%, 100%. And we are going to export. All right, so we have a notification that just said that my desktop is running out of memory. We haven't gotten any notifications on the MacBook Neo, which is, think about it, guys, 8 gigabytes versus 16 gigabytes. So I guess from a multitasking perspective, they both work pretty well. I mean, I'm not really noticing any sluggishness. It's just when it comes to like opening applications, sometimes maybe loading up thumbnails, that can be a bit of an issue with the Slim 5X, just because you're pushing the memory. It's sitting at 95%, so it definitely needs more room. But the Neo, I think it's just well optimized for this platform. It's just incredible to see what they've done with this architecture. I think we might have a winner here. If you look at the progress bar, the Slim 5X looks like it's gonna beat the Neo. But I'll leave a result right over here so you can see exactly how long it took to export these files. Now, for those of you wondering, Photoshop also runs pretty well on both these platforms. Like I said, I can zoom in, no problem, make adjustments to my layers. It's all pretty fast. But if you look at memory consumption, again, this is with Chrome, this is with Microsoft Excel, like 2 of those files. I've got PowerPoint files, I've got Word documents, I've got CapCut in the background, Lightroom. We are looking at 85% memory consumption which is really interesting because it did actually go down compared to when we were running the test midway through. But on the MacBook Neo, we're sitting at close to 85%. So very similar. So for those of you wondering, is 8 gigabytes enough for a Mac? Absolutely. You can get away with so many things with that memory configuration. It just works. I've not really run into any slowdowns or any hiccups on the MacBook Neo. This actually makes me worried about the XPS 13 because that thing base model comes with 8 gigabytes of memory, and I don't even know how it's going to stack up to the MacBook Neo when I run a similar test. So stay tuned for that one. Now, performance is one part of the story, but what about daily use, the different touch points of these laptops? I'm going to start with the Neo because this thing it's an all-aluminum unibody chassis. It feels very similar to its older siblings like the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pros that I've got to test out. There isn't a ton of keyboard flex, and the lid is also not super wobbly. It still features that magnetic lip around the edges, and it gives you that satisfying snap when you close the lid. I've got the citrus model over here, and they've continued that color theme with the silicone pads at the bottom. The keys on the interior space have this slight pastel yellowish tint to it, which, I mean, unfortunately, this was the only color that was actually in stock. But if I were looking for another color, I would probably get the neutral gray model. It's just a lot more cleaner, but that's just what it is. The Slim 5X, it's a little bit of a different story. The top and bottom covers are made out of aluminum, but the interior deck and the bezels around the display are made out of plastic, and you can immediately tell and feel that as you're handling this. There's also a noticeable amount of keyboard flex when you're typing, and the hinge for this 15-inch display has a lot of wobble. It also features a magnetic lip just like the Neo, so when you close it, it gives you that satisfying snap, and you can open this laptop with one hand close to the Neo because, I mean, there's a little bit of a lift, but it works. You see, I really have to mention the price here because I was expecting a full metal chassis, but it's incredible to see how the Neo, which costs less than half as much, actually feels more premium in the hand compared to what Lenovo has to offer. And that's not a great look for the brand. In terms of size and portability, the Neo is the clear winner. It's the smallest, it's the thinnest, and it's the lightest, coming in at just under 3 pounds. It's also 0.5 inches or 12.7 millimeters thin. This thing can easily fit into a small size backpack. And if you ever try to use a laptop on an airplane table, this thing will easily fit the bill. That being said, the Neo does fall short in one key area: ports, because you only get 2 USB-C ports and a headphone jack. And on top of that, not all USB-C ports are created equal here, because one of them is a USB 3.2 Gen 2 port at 10 gigabits per second, and the other one is USB 2 at 480 megabits per second. And oddly, Apple placed the faster port at the far end of the laptop, which is naturally where most people plug in to charge, which means whatever is left for accessories is the slower one. That being said, Apple does give you a notification prompting you to use the faster port, but still, it's just a very odd design call. The Slim 5X, on the other hand, is a port paradise. You get 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, micro SD card reader, 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C ports at 10 gigabits per second. HDMI 2.1 is built in here as well. There's no need for hubs or dongles if you're connecting your laptop to an external monitor or have other peripherals that need to be plugged in. The Slim 5X just makes the Neo look inconvenient. Now, another key aspect that most people find crucial is the input experience. And what I mean by that is, what's the keyboard and trackpad experience like? Because it's something that you interact with every single minute, actually every single second as you're using the device. And this was a close call. You see, the Neo's keyboard feels right at home because I've had my fair share of experience with MacBook Airs and MacBook Pros. So you still get that super nice tactile feedback. The key travel is nice. The layout is perfect. It just works. One thing that I have to mention though is that it doesn't come with a backlit keyboard. Now, during the day, it's totally fine, but at night or in dark environments, it can get a bit challenging, but I guess Apple had to cut costs to hit that price point. This is the base model that I have over here that doesn't come with a Touch ID sensor, but if I were you, I would spend the extra $100 because that not only gets you Touch ID, it also gives you twice as storage. Now, the question to get Touch ID really depends on the type of phone that you're using. If you're an iPhone user and if you use Apple's password manager, it pretty much gets synced across devices, including your Mac. So having Touch ID makes it easier to fill in passwords or even make payments through Apple Pay. It's a lot more secure as well. The Slim 5X, on the other hand, does come with a backlit keyboard. The Type B experience, in my opinion, is just far superior compared to the Neo. Lenovo just knows how to make great laptop keyboards. It's got a little bit more travel than the Neo, and it feels more robust in my opinion. Now, there are no fingerprint sensors baked in, but you can use Windows Hello or Microsoft's facial recognition to log into the device. If we switch over to the trackpads, this is the part that surprised me the most. Now, Apple's using a button style mechanism as opposed to their haptic trackpads that you find on the MacBook Airs and the MacBook Pros. And honestly, the experience is pretty similar. I would say, obviously with haptics, you're going to get that vibration. It's a different sensation versus that physical press that you get with the click. But if I were to compare to the Slim 5X, you probably saw it in the live demonstration, the experience is just night and day. Because I've tested a lot of Windows laptops over the years. And the Neo's trackpad, in my opinion, isn't even a competition within that price point. Because budget laptops that you find at Costco or Best Buy, they usually come with plastic surfaces, they're half-baked drivers, sometimes they just have inconsistent response times. The Neo just works, and that's something that you can rely on every single day. And that matters a lot for a lot of people. The Slim 5X, despite it featuring a glass surface, just doesn't feel as good as the Neo. Not to mention, Apple has a lot of gestures baked into macOS that just works really well with the trackpad, like pinch to zoom, the 3-finger drag. It's all pretty seamless. On the Slim 5X, there are some Windows gestures, but I did experience some cursor skips here and there, and it just breaks the flow. This is what the webcam looks like on the IdeaPad Slim 5X. Lenovo is using a 1080p sensor. They've also implemented a physical webcam shutter switch right around the sensor, so that's an added peace of mind, and this is what the microphone sounds like. And this is what the webcam looks like on the MacBook Neo. The first thing you're gonna notice is that it is a little bit more punched in as opposed to the wider field of view they're gonna get with the Slim 5X, but the quality is actually pretty much similar. I would say maybe a little bit better in terms of detail, but in terms of exposure, it's pretty much identical to the Slim 5X. And the microphone also, in my opinion, sounds better too. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Now, the Slim 5X comes with 2 front-facing speakers, and Lenovo says that it's tuned by Dolby Audio. So I thought it would blow the pants off of the Neo's teeny tiny side-firing drivers located on the edges over here. But boy, was I wrong. The Slim 5X, it is louder, I'll give it that. And it projects better because obviously it's front-facing. But the sound itself, it's just muddy. It sounds like someone just put a muffler on top of it. It's hard to pick out the details. There's no separation and there's virtually no bass. It just gets loud. But loud doesn't necessarily mean good, because the Neo with those side-firing drivers, it's sharper, it's cleaner, it actually has some bass presence. It doesn't fill the room the same way the Slim 5X does, but if you're sitting in front of it, watching a video or listening to music, for $700, guys, this thing just, oh, it's so good. Now, moving on to the displays. And this is really a personal preference because screen size also matters a lot to a lot of people. So if you prefer a bigger display, the Neo's 13-inch simply won't cut it. And the Slim 5X's 15-inch panel would make a lot more sense because, you get a lot more screen real estate. But screen size is only one part of the story. What matters to me is the quality of the display. And this is, again, where I have a real issue with the Slim 5X, because this thing is running a 1200p panel stretched across 15 inches. And it shows. At 150 pixels per inch, you can actually spot the pixels from a normal viewing distance. And for the price, that's just not acceptable, because the Neo comes with a high-resolution 2.4K display at 214 pixels per inch. It's a lot more sharper, it's cleaner, and it's more comfortable to look at for extended periods. On color accuracy, the Neo takes the edge with a Delta E of 1.16, but the Slim 5X has better sRGB, Adobe RGB, and DCI-P3 coverage. And as for brightness, the Neo is about 17% brighter than the Slim 5X. That being said, the Qualcomm laptop does feature 120Hz refresh rate versus the Neo's 60Hz, so scrolling and animations, they feel a lot more smoother compared to 60 Hz. It also has a matte coating on top, which handles the reflections a lot better. And it also features touch support, so if that's something that you're actually into, then your answer is clearly there. Now, in terms of upgradability, the Neo doesn't really give you a lot of options. The A18 Pro chip is a system-on-chip design, meaning the memory is integrated directly to the chip. You can't upgrade the RAM after the fact. The storage is soldered onto the PCB as well. So what you buy is what you get forever. So if you're going to get the base model with 256 gigabytes, just make sure that that works for you in the long term, because you can't add more later and you'll have to rely on external SSDs, which right now, at the time of making this video, is also another hot commodity thanks to AI. That being said, according to iFixit, the MacBook Air is the most repairable MacBook to ever come out in a long time. The battery is screwed down rather than glued in, making replacement easier. The keyboard is also held in by screws rather than rivets. If we switch over to the Slim 5X, you do get a single M.2 SSD slot for upgradability, and the expansion is only up to 1 terabyte. RAM is still fixed, so you're locked in at 16 gigabytes that it ships with. So the bottom line is, if storage capacity is important to you, and if you want to upgrade the storage later down the line, I think Slim 5X just gives you that option. The Neo, it just feels restricted, which is unfortunate. Now, the last thing that I want to go over is battery life, because this also surprised me by a long shot. I thought that the Slim 5X was going to last longer than the Neo because it has a bigger battery versus the Neo, but boy, was I wrong, because on our continuous Chrome web page refresh test, with the screen brightness set to 150 nits, the Neo lasted an hour longer than the Slim 5X. And then with our 4K YouTube playback test, it lasted a little more than an hour than the Slim. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to the basics. The A18 Pro is just a super power efficient chip. I mean, it's an iPhone chip, right? So it's consuming about 4 watts compared to 26 watts on the Slim. So obviously, the more power that it consumes, you're definitely going to deplete that battery a lot quicker. So here's where I land with this comparison, right? The Slim 5X, obviously on paper, should be the better laptop. I mean, it's got more RAM, it's got a backlit keyboard, a bigger screen, better port selection, and of course, it performs pretty well for your everyday tasks. But the Neo, the more I look at it, I just feel like the value just keeps getting better and better, just because it can keep up with those day-to-day tasks really well. It wins on battery. The trackpad is incredible. It's a night and day difference compared to the IdeaPad Slim 5X. And the overall user experience just feels polished. And for the mass majority of people, that actually matters when they're shopping for a laptop. And also don't forget the price delta. The price hike does sting. I'm not gonna pretend that it doesn't. At $600, it was a no-brainer. Now that it's $700, it requires a little bit more thought, but you know, even when you compare this to what's already out there in the market right now, as I'm analyzing it in its current state, it's still a great value. Now, obviously, the biggest barrier is the operating system. How comfortable are you trying out something new from Apple with macOS? Because if you're used to a Windows platform, especially on the lower budget side of things, you know, it is something new to learn and it'll take some time, but it handles all the basic stuff perfectly fine. I mean, if you absolutely love what Microsoft has been doing recently with Windows and its updates, then maybe you should stay away from the MacBook Neo. But when people come to me asking, hey, like, I'm looking for a laptop that is going to last long, I don't really care about the operating system, I just want it to run Chrome and just a bunch of other lighter applications that support macOS, I just easily recommend the MacBook Neo. I mean, there's nothing else that can beat this laptop at this price point, until we get to test out the XPS 13 and the Acer Swift 14, which is on the way, so hit the subscribe button so you don't want to miss that comparison. I'm Ibor with Hardware Canucks. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.